Good morning, my beautiful, beautiful people. Just here making my first video, which is completely overdue. You must accept my extreme apologies, and I'm also going to apologize ahead of time because, my videos are not scripted. I didn't sit down and write out a script of what I'm going to say or what I'm not going to say. So I just plan to kind of record and go from the heart. And hopefully it'll be something that can help someone, something that we can all use or benefit from. What I wanted to begin my first video with is just kind of explaining my background when it comes down to diabetes. Me, myself, I've been diabetic diagnosed since I was 16 years old. And the way that I found out is I kept having episodes of, especially at night, needing to get up, go to the restroom, and then I'd be thirsty. Then I'd drink a lot, and then I'd lay back down, get back up, have to go to the restroom. And it seems like as soon as I would use the restroom, my mouth would be extremely dry. And then I'd have to go and get something to drink. And this went on for a couple of weeks. And I kind of got tired of it. I was 16. So I went ahead and made a doctor's appointment for myself and went to go see my primary physician. At that point, I kind of explained to him everything that was going on. I was extremely fatigued in the daytime, which I wasn't considering it then, but as he explained, it's because I'm interrupting my sleep at night, continually getting up, going to the restroom. So, with that being said, he sent me for blood work, and the blood work came back that I was diabetic. I never even considered it even with the symptoms that I was having because I didn't know anything about diabetes. Even though I had family members that were diabetic, they had all kind of passed before I was really of age to be thinking about it. I know my grandfather was diabetic, but he passed away when I was 9, and all I knew, or I thought I knew, was that he ate sweets. Oh, he was a Southern man, and was always baking, cakes from scratch, cooking that good Southern food, the collard greens with the fatty meats in them and things of that nature. So I just kept thinking, oh, he ate too much sugar. He ate too much sugar. Diabetes is based off of eating too much sugar. Well, no. Once I became diabetic, at that point, I want to say honestly, is when I kind of took control over kind of anything that was going to happen to me from that day forth, because after that it spawned me. I was always a person that likes to research. I always read books when I was in high school. Even at lunchtime, I was always in the library looking or researching anything, something, whatever it was that I didn't already know, I wanted to know it, so once I became a diabetic, they initially tried to treat me with pills like glucotrol and glucophage, those types of things that did not work. It did not affect my blood sugar. In doing a blood check to look and see the performance of my pancreas, my pancreas was not performing the way it should be. It was not making insulin. So therefore, after that, I became an insulin-dependent type 1 diabetic. In researching, however, at that time, which when I was 16, it was like 1996, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there, honestly, and I feel like doctors didn't really know what they were doing at that point either. I mean, what they do is called practice for a reason, I say, but they didn't really know, and it wasn't until I want to say I was 19 and I was pregnant with my first son is when I really focused wholeheartedly on trying to understand how my body was being affected by diabetes. Prior to that, I just tried to take the pills. My blood sugar would go up, it would go down. I had to be taken from work by ambulance because my blood sugar was just too high. And let me explain something. My blood sugar was so high, the machine that was used to check my blood sugar would only read as high as 500. And all it could say was high, meaning that my blood sugars were over 500. And anybody that knows me, I'm very much a spiritual person. You can call me religious if you like, but I'm a believer in God. I go to a Church of Christ. I am a Christian, and I live this life. I mean, it's not just something I talk about. I live it. So I know everything that I've gone through and everything I've dealt with, whether it be good or bad, has been all by design. essentially. It's been allowed by God, therefore it was something that I could deal with, and I have dealt with. With that being said, my blood sugars have gone very high. I mean, over 500, like I stated, and I've never once been in a diabetic coma. I've never had a diabetic seizure. My sugars have dropped down as low as in the 30s. The low 30s, like 32, 34, have been my lowest numbers that I can recall. And even though I felt like I was close to having a seizure because I was shaking a lot, but I knew it was just my body kind of reacting, and it could have also been adrenaline with looking at that number and understanding what was happening, and being taken away by ambulance. We know our adrenaline can raise and cause, physical side effects where we can shake and get very nervous or start to sweat profusely, those types of things. But with that being said, I just want to, take this time and thank God. Anyone that has been diabetic for quite some time or know anyone that's been diabetic, I'm sure, I've known people to say that they've gone into diabetic comas in 300s and 400s. All of our bodies are different, but, I just stand to attest that it's just was all by God's design, and I thank Him for it. But with that being said, once I became pregnant at 18 with my son, my first son, Amari, who is now 16, I was explained that with me being diabetic, I need to watch what I ate, and that most diabetics had babies that were between 10 and 12 pounds, and the babies could come out with certain deformities. All these different things could be happening to my child, and that basically it was kind of in my control. And at that point, I took control. I made sure I monitored my blood sugars very closely. I watched what I ate. I didn't eat things that I saw that were affecting my blood sugar, which at that time were primarily carbs. I didn't have an understanding of what that meant at that time. So basically, I just tried to stay away from starchy foods. I was given, a nutritionist who gave me a carb ratio diet, essentially, and a calorie count that I was allowed to eat. And I just remember it being, I think, like 1,800 calories, but I remember I had like 45 grams of carbs that I could eat with each meal. And I was, I was taught that one piece of bread was one carb, a small amount of grits could be one carb, that type of thing, and what was considered to be a carb and what wasn't. That's when I was first introduced to the fact that there are some starchy vegetables that, diabetics should not overly indulge in. I mean, I stand to say honestly that I feel like as a diabetic or not a diabetic, I think you can honestly, I feel like, have whatever you want, just, doing it in minimal amounts, minimal increments, not overabundant, eating it in overabundance, but basically, I can have a little bit of chocolate if I want. I can have a little bit of cake if I want. I can have a little bit of a chocolate shake if I want. I just can't overindulge. So even with water, I mean, as you all know, I'm sure, you can drown or die of water toxicity, by overindulging in water, drinking too much water too fast. When you drink too much water too fast, you're diluting the sodium and the potassium, which is what helps your heart to beat. So if you drink too much water, you can die. Everything in moderation. Moderation is the key. With that being said, my son, I'm happy to say, he was born 7 pounds and 4 ounces. I was definitely more determined to take control over my diabetes when I was pregnant than when I wasn't, because I felt like it's not fair for me to put at risk someone's life, and their livelihood, when they don't really have control over it and they didn't ask to be created. It was my responsibility to do the right thing, take care of myself, to make sure that everything was going to be okay for my son once he was born. That's basically the first part of my diabetic story. I'm going to kind of end it there. I do plan to hopefully record another video in the next day or two and get it uploaded. Right now, I'm just lazy. I just use my camera on my phone, unfortunately. But I do have 2 cameras as well, so I do plan to record videos on there so that it can be, you know, maybe a better quality or at least a full screen. Hopefully you guys can hear me very well. And I'm hoping if anyone else has dealt with these things that you can, you know, kind of relate to what I had to deal with and what I am currently still dealing with as a, you know, diabetic, insulin dependent. You know, I feel like it's important for us to understand, number one, and then I'm going to end my video here because I do want to have some type of organization with these videos, but I do want to give some information that's not just telling you how I became diabetic. The thing that you want to understand and know and research as well for yourself is the medicines, the medications that you're on, and the plan that your doctor has given you. If you are a type 2 diabetic and you are only diet controlled, it is very important for you to understand that number one, carbohydrates are not your friends and everything can turn into a carbohydrate. The only thing that doesn't convert itself to sugar is protein and fats. So if you're eating vegetables, you know, if you're eating starchy vegetables, eating beans, those are healthy as far as fiber is concerned. And yes, they're a vegetable, but you still have to kind of watch what vegetables you're choosing to eat. There are lots of apps out there. There are lots of lists out there that will tell you what I call the free foods, the foods that do not affect your blood sugar enough to be something that you need to count. Like, of course, we know lettuce, cabbage, broccoli, you know, carrots, which I was shocked because I don't know why I felt like that should have been a carby vegetable. But there are a lot of options out there. Brussels sprouts, asparagus, I love, you know, things that we can eat without having to be overly concerned about how it's going to affect our blood sugars. But there are carbohydrate vegetables that we need to minimize or stay away from that are not going to be good for us. Also, of course, we know starches, whether it be white or wheat, honestly, it's going to affect your blood sugar the same. One, they tell you may be a healthier choice, like the, you know, brown rice or the wheat options, if you're going to have that type of starch. But honestly, if you can minimize, restrict, or just completely remove those out of your diet, that would be the better thing. White starches like potatoes, you know, pastas, bread, that type of thing. Even protein is good, but you have to understand it's important to make your meals out where you have a protein with every carbohydrate, because when you eat a carbohydrate, the carbohydrate actually peaks and stays in your system for 2 hours. Proteins last in your system for 4 hours. So if you eat something, a carbohydrate, and you put it with a protein, it'll actually keep you fuller longer. It will have that effect on your blood sugar longer, but it will also keep you level longer. Because if you're eating carbohydrates, but then in 2 hours, you know, you cover for the carbohydrate, but in 2 hours, your insulin is peaking or your medication is peaking, and then you're on the downward slope and you haven't eaten anything else, then your blood sugar can drop. And doing like this is what we do not want to do as diabetics. Keeping our blood sugars as straight and consistent as possible is the best thing. Being too high is not good. Being too low is not good. When we're talking about fast-acting sugars, if you are experiencing a low blood sugar, we're supposed to do a 15-15. And that means that you eat 15 grams of a fast-acting sugar, which could be like a hard candy, you know, just raw sugar, honey, something, or the tabs. I like the glucose tabs because to me they taste like candy, especially the green apple one. But that fast-acting sugar is going to affect your blood sugar within 15 minutes. So that's why it's called the 15-15 rule. You eat 15 grams of fast-acting sugar, and then you check your blood sugar in 15 minutes. You see where it is. If it's not up enough, eat another 15 grams. But with that being said, you can't think that you're going to eat a bunch of candy and then try to cover it with insulin or something and not end up having a high and then an extreme low. Because what will happen is you're eating that candy, so you're going to take your insulin, eat your medication or whatnot, take your medication based off of the amount of carbohydrates or the sugar that you're eating. But then in 15 to 30 minutes, that is going to go up and then you're going to crash. And on the way down is when your blood sugar is going to start to bottom out, but yet you still have medicine in your body. Your insulin peaks at 4 hours. So it is in your system for a full 4 hours, meaning that's why you need to put the protein with the carb, because when you have the insulin or the medication in your body, it's lasting for 4 hours, and so is your food. So you have more of an opportunity to keep your blood sugars leveled like you want them to be. Also, and I'm going to leave you with this, it's important to understand if you are on pills only or pills and insulin, to understand how those medications are actually working in your body and what they're doing for you. For instance, a lot of people are taking Metformin. A lot of people don't like them, because it causes all kind of side effects. I don't take it. I'm a type 1 diabetic. It would do nothing for me. If you're type 1 diabetic and your doctor has you taking Metformin, please go in and ask a question and find out why. Metformin does nothing for us. If you're type 1, you're not making insulin, and you can be either an adult onset or, an adolescent. You could be a child that has become type 1, and now it could be adult onset. You could be, 30s, 40s, 50s, and become a type 1 diabetic because your pancreas stops working and stops producing insulin. So if you are taking pills, however, like Metformin only opens up the cell walls. And I'm going to talk more in detail about that in my next video, how people actually became diabetic and why you are diabetic now, and maybe help to dispel, or explain why or how you became a type 1 diabetic in your adult years, why that's happening to you now as opposed to what they thought was just adolescent onset. If you were diabetic at 17 or 14 or 3, it was immediately you're type 1. And then if you're an adult, you're type 2. Now they know that that is not always the case. But like I stated, Metformin only helps to open up the cell walls, which means that it is not providing you any additional insulin. It is not making your body produce more insulin. Therefore, you still need to watch your diet. You can't think that I took my Metformin, now I can eat sweets. That is not what happens. When your body produces insulin, insulin takes a sugar, and it will take it to one of three cells. It's going to either take it to a fat cell, a muscle cell, or your liver, because your liver holds on to, it's called like the reservoir. It's holding it, and if your blood sugar were to drop, for instance, your liver's going to dump all the sugar that it has in it into your bloodstream, which is not always a good thing because it has no filter. It's not like your pancreas. It's not going to give you what you need based off of what you have in your blood. It's going to dump all it has in the reservoir. And that could be more than enough, more than what you actually need. But with that being said, just understand that Metformin it's not an insulin pill. It's not making you produce more insulin, so it is not truly reducing your blood sugars. What it does is help your body use the insulin that you are able to make to get the sugar out of your bloodstream, to put it into the cells where it needs to go. If you eat too much sugar and your body is not able to accommodate by making more insulin, you are still going to be high. You'll just have a whole bunch of cell doors that are open waiting for sugar to be put in, but you won't have enough little workers to carry that sugar into those cells. So please be mindful of that. It's important. Watch your diet. Another thing that you can do that also helps open cell walls is exercise. Even if you went out and walked for a stroll, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, increasing it daily to get it up to 30 minutes, you're doing your body a whole lot of justice, and it's a benefit. It's helping your body use what it has more readily, and it could also help you to no longer need to take Metformin, especially if you're one of those ones that are having those very bad side effects. If you just exercise, that also helps your body to not only open the doors but keep them open. So now your body is able to use the insulin that you're making. Still watch your diet, watch your carbohydrates. me personally, I would say that no one person should be having more than 60 grams of carbs in one meal, no matter what your calorie intake is, no matter what your physical level is. If you are diabetic, I don't think, me personally, I would say that you should not have more than 60 grams of carb in one meal. But if you're going to have a lot, let's say Thanksgiving, go for a walk before you eat. Go for a walk after you eat. Doesn't have to be at an extremely fast pace. Just get out, get moving, and watch. You'll see a big, big difference. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end my video here. I didn't really plan for it to be this long, but with diabetes, as well as the other illnesses that I plan to discuss, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of knowledge, and there's a lot of learning that has to be done and to be given. And I want to make sure that it's clearly explained so that you can go away having more knowledge and being able to be your own health advocate, not truly and just only relying on the doctors. Because, I mean, honestly, they're doing what they know to do. Some things have not, have yet to be discovered. And some things may not personally affect you or be beneficial to you like it may be to 2 or 3 other people. Sometimes these illnesses that we deal with are based off of our own personal experience. And if you're dealing with a doctor that does not deal with this illness on a regular basis, they don't have a lot of, experience to go based off of. If you're having your diabetes managed by your primary care physician, for instance, he's not going to have as much knowledge as an endocrinologist who deals with it on a regular basis, is getting all of the alerts of the new diabetic medications. I went to the hospital the other day, and I was giving the nurse my prescriptions, and when I mentioned one, the doctor asks, "Oh, what is that for? I've never heard of that one." Although it's been around for a couple of years, it's only for diabetes, and it's a specific type of medication. So if you're not dealing with a diabetic on a regular basis, you're not going to know about it. So, and that's the whole purpose of my channel. I just want to help others, to get to know their bodies better, to see what's going to be good for them, what's not. A lot of these medications, unfortunately, and I'm kind of glad that I chose not to take some of them when they were offered, are now coming up on bad drug lists. We're seeing, alerts, and yeah, you may be able to sue or what have you, but if it ended in death or it ended in you being, extremely injured or having to deal with certain things, heart attacks and strokes and, uncontrollable bleeding and things of that nature, to me, it's not worth it if you can prevent it by just doing what you need to do. I wholeheartedly believe, when we were created with the things that we needed. Back in the day when our ancestors were just eating meat and eating vegetables and farming off of the lands, I don't really think they had to deal with a lot of things that we have to deal with, because now we're trying to preserve things that shouldn't be preserved. It's been told to me, and I think a nutritionist told me this as well, that, food is meant to go bad. It's meant to spoil. If you are putting things in your body that cannot expire, that is a problem. What is it that they're using? Because we know anything that is raw, that is fresh, that comes from the earth is going to spoil by design. If I buy something, it's not going to last me 3 or 4 years. If I buy a piece of fruit, it's not going to last me probably more than a week, depending upon the type of fruit that it is. If I can buy this item and keep it on my shelf for 2 years, I shouldn't be putting it in my body as much as possible. And I mean, that's another thing that I'm going to be talking about on my videos, as far as, healthy but cost-effective ways of eating the way that you should be eating and getting the nutrition that you should be getting, but not breaking the bank. I mean, I'm a mom of 3 kids, recently married, and nonetheless, I mean, if I can save something, save $1 to put towards something else, why not? So I plan to share those tips with you guys as well. Hopefully you found this video helpful, or at least encouraging that, you do have control over this disease. You can take control back, and you can keep control, and you can help to prevent or extend the time frame that you deal with certain health issues that will come with diabetes and diseases like it. I love you guys oh so much. If you like the video, please thumbs it up. Please subscribe to my channel. I will have more videos coming, I promise. And please, share it if you like it. Comment if there's something specific that I can talk about for you. Any questions I can answer for you. Please feel free to comment. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. Let me know what you'd like to see going forward. I love you so much. And remember, you are wonderfully and fearfully made. Have a blessed day.